What do you think is the percentage of blacks who think that Jesus is black?
It might be higher than the amount of people that think Jesus was white.
Yeah, I think so too. Because blacks are more into race for some reason than whites are.
You said for some reason, you don't know what that reason is or what one of those reasons could be?
What reason would you say that blacks are more into race?
Not that blacks are more into race, that you can comfortably say that black people are more into race. You don't know what
Okay.
the
So
reasons are that you can make that claim comfortably?
Do you know why I would say that?
I do.
Why would I say that blacks are more into race than whites?
Based on the characteristics and the behavior.
Right. Based on how I've heard when I hear black people talk all over media and in person, they're more into race. And I said for some reason they're more into race than whites are.
Yeah, you don't know what any of those reasons could be? You couldn't suggest a reason?
I could suggest multiple reasons.
What reason do you think it is that black people are more into the black stuff than white people are, according to you?
They fell for this temptation since maybe since they're a minority, they fell for this temptation of being into the blackness and being, it's kind of the victim thing that pushed them into being into race, interestingly. So as
that's an interesting answer.
Yeah, as they there were the NAACP and others that came up after slavery. There was this mama mindset amongst Jewish people and black people and some whites. And it wasn't all black people, but a lot of them, the more liberal side of them, identified with the race thing and started being suspicious of whites and whites' intentions with the lynchings and things, because lynchings happened for alleged crimes. Some of them may be false accusations. And so they started documenting these lynchings. I was reading about Ida B. Wells and these alleged rapes that Ida B. Wells claimed were consensual out-of-wedlock sex way back in the 18 and 1900s, right? And they were lynched for, rapes, when in actuality, according to her, it was consensual sex, and they didn't, even though that was considered very immoral. And so there was this culture of believing in victimhood on the basis of race. They're oppressing us on the basis of race. And so they got all into that. And as I think it got worse with the out-of-wedlock births that started increasing in the 40s and 50s and really out of control 60s, 70s through today. Out-of-wedlock sex and out-of-wedlock births, because people became more disassociated from God, so they became more and their fathers, of course, and so they became unstable and trying to find stability in the world and physical things like race. And it became connected to their Christianity. It became connected to their politics. It became connected to their rejection of Christianity, the white man's religion, the slave religion, So it became connected to like everything. Like a black person is raised with oftentimes black-minded parents in black-minded churches with black-minded politicians and black-minded white media. Even white media is sort of black-minded, even Fox News. So they're surrounded and bred and marinated in it, to use Oprah's word about the white racists. That's what happens to the black so-called racists too. That's my...
So everybody's in on it too? Well, everybody's a culprit, I guess.
Yeah, it's not a conspiracy, it's a corrupt culture. You know how people say, oh, it's a conspiracy, the Jews got us into pornography. But no, the Jews are into it themselves. That's just their culture, and
Hmm.
they're good at spreading culture, corrupt culture. But yeah, and it's
Yeah.
not,
So
if
you
it
said
wasn't a temptation to the non-Jews, they wouldn't be into it either. They wouldn't be into it, and then they would have no one to blame.
you say being a minority made them susceptible to getting into the black thing,
Yeah,
worrying about non-black people attacking and killing black people, and then they got into it so deeply that it started affecting the way that they vote and the way that they worship.
the way they identify. Yeah, every different person has different temptations in life. Your temptation may not be my temptation. And so that's how I see the races too. That there's this phenomenon where different races have these different embrace these different mindsets that are just worldly. All of the mindsets are worldly, but they're these are the symptoms. The symptoms are different. The root, anger and evil, is the same. They're Satan in the mind.
Yeah,
That's how I see it. It's all spiritual when it breaks down, but it's kind of fun for me to talk about the way that different peoples end up being.
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
What would you say? Or do you have any follow up on, okay, so non-white Jesus, like, do you agree with me that we're not even supposed to be into color when it comes to that? Like, we're the slave.
Yeah,
We're in the kingdom of heaven. On earth, race matters, and that's we sort of act according or accord. Do you agree with me? Race matters on earth, but not in heaven.
I agree with you. Yes, I
Yeah.
hadn't even thought about it until conversation with guys like Mark, where I'm like, Dad, like if let's just say hypothetically that race does matter in heaven, is heaven segregated? Are we gonna have to swim in different swimming pools? What year is it gonna actually capture? So, am I gonna have to pick cotton in heaven? These are the types of weird questions that may pop up when you have somebody like Mark that brings up the idea that race could matter in heaven. I
It,
don't think that it matters, but hypothetically speaking, if it does, when I see Jesus, I still plan to kneel because every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess.
yeah.
And I'm not going to hesitate if he's not the color that I expect him to be.
Do you think he will
So
be a
my question
color?
was, what my question to the other people was if Jesus is if he looks something differently than what you expect, are you going to hesitate, or are you going to acknowledge that Christ is King? And sadly, or not sadly, surprisingly, I've heard hesitation and I've heard people say no. So maybe they just didn't understand the question. Maybe if we make him non-black instead of black, Mark will say yes. I'll acknowledge Christ as King when I see him. Not if Christ is black and when I see him, I'm not going to acknowledge him.
Did you grow up at all thinking about Jesus' color?
No, I felt like the images of him went against one of the commandments. So that was always a foundational question that I've had with church in general.
That's funny, man. Yeah. I think the thinking and talking about it, at least getting into it, is sort of against. It's sort of even concerning oneself with the color of them and asking about it is kind of like what Anthony said, a liberal question, because you're bringing back to physical things rather than the spirit of the man. And it's
Yeah,
funny. I
and I
was
don't
gonna
think we
talk.
should do that with Christ, and I don't really think we should do that with each other.
I was gonna talk with Omar and be like, "Have you ever wondered what color Muhammad was? That they're not allowed to have depictions of Muhammad, their prophet for the Muslims."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Oh, maybe those Muslims are smart for outlawing any depiction of him." Uh, Crazy.
Yeah, I felt like one of the commandments said we shouldn't be making images, but I don't know everything, so I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, I feel like Caesar Borgia, that's the guy who looks like Jesus
Or
the most,
or
right?
say so.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that guy's name? Do you know the historical figure? They use his
I don't know
image.
how to pronounce it. I always say Borealis, but I'm like, that's the aurora, so I know it's wrong.
Right.